Sure. Here's section 1 of the story script, keeping it focused, emotional, and true to the theme of infidelity. It stays within the 760-word target, avoids repetition or fluff, and is structured for high-quality storytelling. I always thought I was doing everything right. Working hard, being a good father, showing up. I wasn't the flashiest guy or the most romantic husband, but I believed consistency mattered. I believed in showing up when it counted. And when it came to Liam, our son, nothing mattered more. Every morning he'd run down the stairs yelling, "Dad," and that moment alone could wipe away the worst of days. His smile had a way of reminding me why I worked so hard, why I stayed grounded. Emily, my wife, was different. Stunning, smart, organized. The kind of woman who walked into a room and owned it. But somewhere along the way, she changed. She became distant. Not angry. Not rude. Just somewhere else. Her body was there, but her presence wasn't. At first, I chalked it up to parenting stress. We'd both been tired lately. But it grew over time, longer glances at her phone, late-night texts, sudden errands that didn't make sense. Still, I ignored it. I trusted her. We'd been married for almost a decade. We had history. We had Liam. I figured every couple hits patches like this. I tried harder. I picked up flowers. Took her to dinner. Helped more with bedtime routines. But nothing seemed to pull her closer. She was polite, always polite, but cold in a way I couldn't reach. Then there was Mark. My old college roommate, best man at our wedding. He'd been around more than usual the past few months. He always said he loved spending time with Liam, and Liam adored him. They played catch in the backyard, built Legos on the floor. Emily always lit up a bit when Mark came around, and I noticed, but told myself it was just comfort. Familiarity. The three of us had history. Of course, they got along, but it started feeling off. One evening, I came home from work and found Mark in the kitchen, laughing with Emily while she made dinner. Not just chatting, laughing the kind of laugh she hadn't shared with me in months. It hit me, that low tight feeling in the chest. I remember standing at the doorway, watching them, something inside me unsettled. I smiled, walked in, made small talk. Pretended I didn't notice the way their eyes met, and then quickly darted away. I tried not to think about it. I had bigger things to focus on. Liam's birthday was coming up, and I wanted it to be perfect. I'd taken time off work, planned a party, even coordinated with Emily and Mark to get everything set up. We invited friends, family, some kids from Liam's class. I even ordered that giant superhero cake he kept pointing to in the bakery window. Liam talked about it for weeks. Every night before bed, he'd say, "I can't wait for my party, Dad. It's going to be the best one ever." I was determined to make sure it would be. No matter how tired I was, no matter how weird things felt between Emily and me, I kept my focus on Liam. He deserved everything good. The morning of the party, I woke up early to hang decorations, pick up the cake, and double-check the gift hiding in the closet, a bike I'd saved up for months to get him. Emily helped with the kitchen setup. Mark showed up early, carrying balloons and joking about how stressful kid parties were. I laughed along. Pretended everything was normal. By mid-afternoon, the house was filled with laughter and chaos. Kids running around, music playing, adults chatting over coffee. I watched Liam play, his face glowing with happiness, and I felt proud. Tired, but proud. For a moment, it felt like everything was exactly as it should be. Emily handed me a slice of cake and smiled. A quick, small smile, like she used to. We gathered everyone around for the big moment. Candles lit, everyone singing. Liam closed his eyes, scrunched up his little face, and made his birthday wish. I remember thinking, whatever you wished for, kiddo, I hope it comes true. If only I knew what he was about to say. Let me know when you'd like section 2, and I'll continue seamlessly from here. Of course. Here is section 2 of the story, continuing seamlessly, focused, emotionally intense, and within the 760-word target. Everyone clapped as Liam blew out the candles, his face glowing with pride. He looked around at all the people who loved him, completely unaware of what his next words would do. I crouched down beside him and said, "All right, buddy, what did you wish for?" I expected something about toys or maybe a puppy. Instead, he looked at me, then over at Emily and Mark, and said in the most innocent voice, "I wished Mommy and Uncle Mark could get married so we don't have to keep it a secret anymore." Time froze. I stared at him, the words not registering at first. My smile stayed frozen on my face, but inside, something snapped. Around us, the room was silent. You could hear the faint whir of the ceiling fan. I looked at Emily. Her face had gone pale. Mark tried to chuckle, but it sounded forced, hollow. Rebecca, Emily's sister, looked horrified. I turned to Liam, who was still smiling, completely oblivious to what he had just said. I stood up slowly. I didn't yell. I didn't ask questions. I just walked to the kitchen, heart pounding, my hands shaking. The blood in my ears was so loud I could barely hear the soft footsteps behind me. Emily whispered, "David, he's just a kid. He doesn't know what he's saying." I didn't answer. I couldn't. I walked past her and out the back door, into the yard, pretending to check something on my phone. But really, I just needed air. I needed to breathe. 4 hours that night, her words repeated in my head. He doesn't know what he's saying. But kids say what they hear. What they see. They don't invent things like that out of nowhere. My stomach twisted every time I replayed his voice. So we don't have to keep it a secret anymore. I kept hearing it, like a record stuck on repeat. When the party was over and everyone had left, Liam went to bed happy. He hugged me tight, whispered, "Thanks, Dad," and fell asleep in minutes. Emily tried to act normal, cleaning up, asking me if I needed anything. I said nothing. I couldn't fake it anymore. She moved through the house like everything hadn't just been set on fire. I sat in the dark living room after she went to bed. That's when I opened the Cloud app linked to our front door camera. I'd never looked at it closely before. I'd set it up for security, not surveillance. But I needed to see something. Anything. I scrolled through weeks of footage. Nothing too explicit. But patterns started emerging. Mark visiting often when I was working late. Emily stepping out looking different than when I'd left her in the morning. Too many coincidental overlaps. There was a clip from 2 weeks ago. Mark showed up at 9:30 p.m. Emily opened the door in a robe. He walked in casually, no hesitation. They disappeared into the living room. The feed doesn't have sound, but it didn't need it. He wasn't dropping off anything. He stayed for over an hour. No Liam in sight. I turned the phone off and sat in silence. I didn't cry. I didn't break anything. I just felt hollow. Like something inside me had been carved out. It wasn't even just the betrayal. It was the fact that Liam knew. That whatever had happened between Emily and Mark had been happening long enough for our son to believe it was normal. A secret worth protecting. A future worth wishing for. I thought about every time I'd called Mark my brother. Every time I thanked him for being there. Every time I brushed off the warnings in my gut. Emily didn't just cheat on me. She brought that into our home. Into our child's world. And now, no matter what I did next, Liam's image of family had been changed. I stared into the dark for what felt like hours. I could hear Emily's breathing from the bedroom down the hall. Calm. Asleep. like nothing had happened. I couldn't understand how someone could be so composed while standing on top of so much wreckage. I wanted to walk in there and scream. I wanted to ask her why. But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew she didn't love me anymore. Maybe she hadn't for a while. Maybe she stayed for Liam. Maybe she convinced herself she could manage both lives. But the truth was out now. And it hadn't come from a fight, or an affair exposed through texts. It had come from the most honest voice in the house. Liam had told me the truth without even realizing it. And I would never forget that moment for the rest of my life. Let me know when you're ready for Section 3, and I'll deliver the final act. Here is Section 3, concluding the story with emotional clarity, directness, and a clean resolution, all within the word count target. The next morning, I waited until Liam left for school before saying a single word. Emily was sipping her coffee, scrolling through her phone like it was any other day. I sat across from her and asked quietly, "How long has it been going on?" Her eyes didn't lift. She didn't ask what I meant. She knew. Her hand trembled slightly as she set the cup down. She tried to deny it first. Said Liam must have misunderstood something. But the moment I mentioned the door cam footage, the color drained from her face. The silence between us did more damage than shouting ever could. She didn't fight. She didn't defend. She just broke. Said she was sorry. Said she didn't mean for it to happen. That mark was there when she felt invisible. That one thing turned into another. I asked if she loved him. She hesitated. That was all I needed to hear. I wasn't interested in the timeline or the excuses. I didn't want to know how many times. It didn't matter. What mattered was the fact that Liam had seen enough to believe his mother should be with another man. What mattered was that the people I trusted most treated my home like it was disposable. I told her I was done. She cried. Told me she didn't want to break our family. I told her she already had. Later that day, Mark tried to call. I didn't answer. He texted to say it wasn't what I thought. That he never meant to hurt me. That he cared about Liam. I blocked his number. Any explanation from him would only insult my intelligence. Rebecca stopped by that evening. She said she had suspected for a while but wasn't sure. She apologized for not saying anything sooner. I could tell she meant it. She asked if I planned to leave. I said I didn't know what I was doing yet, but I knew what I couldn't stay in. I started looking for a new place the same week. Not out of impulse, but out of necessity. I needed space. Clarity. Somewhere I could breathe. I talked to a lawyer. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted structure. I needed to protect Liam from the chaos that would follow. I didn't want him caught in the middle of something he didn't cause. Emily and I agreed to shared custody. There was no fight. No begging. Just quiet arrangements. Maybe a part of her understood that this was the price. Liam started spending half the week with me. I set up a small apartment near his school. Got a bunk bed he loved and filled the walls with his favorite posters. We made it ours. Just the two of us. At first, he didn't ask questions. Kids are just faster than adults sometimes. But one night, while brushing his teeth, he looked up and said, "Did I do something wrong?" I felt my chest tighten. I dropped to my knees and told him no. That none of it was his fault. That grown-ups make mistakes, even big ones. That his job was to be a kid, to laugh, to grow, to feel safe. I told him I'd always be there, no matter where I lived. Over time, the wound stopped bleeding. It didn't disappear, but it scabbed over. Emily and I were civil, but distant. Our conversations were limited to logistics. There were no attempts to rekindle anything. I didn't ask about Mark, and she never brought him up. I assumed they tried to continue whatever they had. I don't care. What mattered to me was making sure Liam never had to feel like home was a battlefield. Therapy helped. Not just for Liam, but for me. I needed to understand how I missed the signs, how I ignored my own instincts. But mostly, I needed to forgive myself for believing in something that turned out to be hollow. I learned that love isn't just about holding on, it's knowing when to let go without bitterness. Now, when Liam visits, we build forts in the living room and eat pancakes for dinner. He sleeps peacefully. He smiles the same. And that innocence, that joy, reminds me that not everything was lost. That even in betrayal, some parts of life remain untouched. I don't hate Emily. I don't think she set out to destroy us. But intentions don't erase damage. Choices do. And when she made hers, I had to make mine. I still think about that moment, Liam's birthday, the wish, the silence that followed. It felt like my world shattered. But looking back, I see it differently now. That wish wasn't a curse. It was a gift. The truth came out, not in anger or suspicion, but through the purest voice in our home. Liam didn't expose his mother. He saved his father, and that's something I'll carry with me forever, absolutely. Here's section 4 of the script, written with precision, no repetition, no fluff, just emotional closure, clarity, and development, all within the 760-word target. 6 months passed. Life didn't return to what it was, but it settled into something I could live with. Routines helped. Morning drop-offs, evening check-ins, weekend outings with Liam. The pain didn't vanish, but it dulled into a quiet presence, like background noise I could choose to ignore when I needed to focus on what mattered. Liam thrived. His grades stayed solid, and he smiled easily. He started playing soccer, asked to learn guitar. I showed up to every practice, every recital. I never missed a moment again. I kept telling myself that if I stayed consistent, if I stayed calm, he'd never feel the full weight of what happened. He didn't need to carry our mistakes. He deserved freedom from that. Emily didn't fight the distance. She stayed in the house, lived her life, co-parented without drama. Occasionally, we'd exchange a glance during drop-offs, acknowledgement, not affection. Whatever was between her and Mark, it didn't last. I found that out from Rebecca, who casually mentioned Mark had taken a job out of state. No explanations, no apologies. Just gone. It didn't bring relief. Just confirmation. They burned everything for nothing. I didn't speak to Mark again. I never planned to. There was nothing left to salvage there. Our friendship, our history, it died quietly, buried under the weight of his choices. I grieved the loss of trust more than the man himself. Work became my escape. I poured into projects, accepted more responsibilities. The distraction helped. I didn't talk about what happened with anyone outside the necessary few. Not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted to protect Liam. I didn't want him to grow up defined by whispers. Eventually, people stopped asking. That's how the world works. Your life explodes, people stare, then move on. You're left picking up the pieces alone. But solitude taught me something I hadn't expected. I was stronger than I gave myself credit for. Not bitter. Just wiser. One afternoon, Liam and I sat on the apartment floor, building a massive Lego city. He stopped suddenly, looked at me, and asked, "Are you happy now?" I didn't rush to answer. I looked at him, so young, yet so perceptive. I told him the truth. That I was healing. That happiness wasn't about everything being perfect, but about being honest. About choosing peace even when things don't go the way you planned. He nodded like he understood. Maybe part of him did. I started journaling at night. Not for anyone else, just for me. I wrote about the confusion, the betrayal, the quiet moments that made me smile. About the lessons I learned. Like how love without loyalty is just comfort in disguise. How silence can speak louder than confessions. And how sometimes, the worst heartbreaks teach you the kind of self-respect no one else can give you. I didn't rush into dating. That wasn't the point. I needed to rebuild the man I had neglected, the one who kept giving and giving until there was nothing left to notice the cracks forming under his own feet. I worked on being present, not just functional. On listening better. On letting go of anger without pretending it never existed. Eventually, I opened up to someone. A friend from work who never pried, never pressed. She didn't come in to fix me. She just listened. One evening, after dropping Liam off, we had coffee. She asked nothing about my past. We talked about books, childhood, travel. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was pretending to be okay. I just was. I don't know what the future holds. I'm not chasing a perfect ending. I've learned those don't exist. What exists are real moments. Honest ones. The kind where you sit in silence with someone and don't feel the need to fill it. Where your child runs into your arms, knowing that no matter what the world looks like, that hug means home. I never imagined Liam's birthday would be the day everything changed. But in hindsight, it was exactly what I needed. Not the pain. Not the betrayal. But the truth. Clean, undeniable, and raw. It broke everything, but it also cleared the lies. And in the empty space that followed, I found something better: clarity, peace, and a new way forward. I no longer measure my life by what I lost. I measure it by what I protect. My son. My integrity. My peace. And sometimes, the things that shatter you are the same ones that set you free.